Hi everyone, welcome back to Haley's Comment. Today we are going to talk about my experience growing up in Catholic school. Almost my entire life, I grew up in Catholic school. I went to a Catholic school from preschool all the way up till 8th grade. I did transfer for a few months in the 8th grade, and then I went to a year of Catholic school in high school, and it's just a different experience. At the time, I didn't think my experience was anything unique, but now having experienced a public school, I can tell you that Catholic school is interesting. This video today is just going to be fun little lighthearted things that happened to me while I was at Catholic school and kind of what it's like. It's not meant to be taken seriously at all, and I do want to make a video about my actual experience at Catholic school, like the deeper side of my experience at Catholic school. Okay, so the first thing to touch on is obviously praying. I never really realized how much praying there actually is in Catholic school until I went to public school and I realized, like, wow, there is a lot of praying just in everyday life. You start off with morning prayer, and even before that, some kids would get to school early and literally go to chapel mass before school. Mass is just church. You start school and you have a prayer, you do the Pledge of Allegiance, and then of course you pray, and then you start your day, and at some point throughout the day you're going to have religion class or theology. We didn't actually sit down and always just physically read the Bible. Sometimes we did, of course, but a lot of times we just read out of our religion books that had certain passages from the Bible. But even when you're not in religion class, religion is still, everything is religion class. Every class that you have somehow relates to God. God is mentioned in every period of the day. Then of course you would have prayer before lunch, and then just God coming up in everyday conversations, even not just in class, but with your friends or whatever. And then after school, every single day, I would stay after school and pray the rosary. So I prayed a lot. The one advantage of this in Catholic school is in any subject, you can somehow manipulate the answer to be about God. You might have gotten the answer completely wrong, but if you relate it back to God, you're getting some of it right, because you can't dispute that God exists in a Catholic school. It would always work, but a lot of times it would. Now, of course, there was mass that you had to go to, or church. School masses, so the entire school is in a mass, and we'd have those about once a month. We would have chapel mass with just our class, and whenever you were going to the all-school mass, you wanted a role so badly. It was such a big deal if you could get one of the parts speaking, and so if you got chosen to do one of those, it was such a big deal. And if you were the person who would never get chosen, it was,
why isn't my child getting chosen?
Also, to be a server, if you've never been to church, there are kids that will carry in the cross, lead the priest around, and you're helping out with mass. Now for us, there were 3 different server roles. For each church, it's kind of different. There was one person that I don't even remember what this one person did. They had a very minor role. There was another person who had the next step up, and they had to go get the book at a certain part in mass and then come over and hold it up. The other person who would carry around the cross. Now the cross was the big deal. You always wanted to be that because that means you're the main server, and I would never get it because I was just smaller than everybody else. Sometimes I would get the book role, but whenever I was supposed to go get the book, I was always daydreaming, and I would never know when to go get it. But there was always drama and who's getting what role, because it's a Catholic school and there's drama around everything in Catholic school. Something similar was Stations of the Cross, the different parts that Jesus went through in order to carry the cross. It's just something in the Catholic world. Catholic schools will have pictures of at this point Jesus did this. You read a certain thing and there's a picture, and there's somebody acting it out, carrying a cross. You wanted to get one of the parts, one of the lead roles. You wanted to be Jesus, you wanted to be Mary. Same thing during Christmas at church, they do the nativity scene. So even though you wanted to be a part of mass so badly, you never wanted the priest to call on you in church. During all school mass, the priest would oftentimes ask us questions and be like,
what's the answer?
You're answering in front of the entire school, you need to know the answer. The priest would go to call on people, and you'd be slumping over confession. So we went to confession, I think it was once a month, something like that, regularly. Maybe it was once a semester, I don't know. For those of you who aren't Catholic, confession is just where you go and you tell the priest a bunch of what you've done wrong. They tell you to say 10 Hail Marys and then you're forgiven or whatever. And the thing is, we had 2 people that we could go to, and one was the nice priest, and he was chill and he was understanding, and then there was the other priest who was a little bit younger. He was very mean, honestly. And so you never wanted to go to him. You would plan it so that you would sit in a way that you could go to the nice priest, but sometimes you would have to go to the other guy. No matter who I went to, I'd figure out in my head, like, what am I gonna say? How am I gonna say it? And so you try to figure out those things that would like not make you sound horrible, but like you're still saying something. And I would always be so cautious when I had to go to the not so nice priest. After all school mass, you'd always have to like put chairs away, and you'd always want to be the last one there because of course the more time you spend putting away chairs, the less time you're spending in science class. At a Catholic school, you try everything to get away with bending the rules in terms of the dress code. Like each year we would get a new rule book, just like any other school. The thing is, at most schools, kids don't really pay attention to the rule books. Now at Catholic school, the kids have a copy of the rule books. They usually will like at least skim through it each year to see what's changed so that they can know how to not get in trouble and how to get away with as much as possible. You want to be different. In elementary school, it's not really that big of a deal, but by the time you get to middle school, you don't want to dress like everybody else. So I'd always try and get away with anything I could without actually breaking the rules. For example, like you were only allowed to wear religious jewelry at my school and at a lot of Catholic schools, but like I had a pearl necklace that my boyfriend gave me at the time, and I really wanted to wear it every day. I'm not wearing some trashy, ugly necklace or something like that or something inappropriate. Like it's a nice looking necklace, but I hid it every single day. I would wear it, but I would wear it underneath my shirt. So it felt like I was getting away with something, but I really wasn't because no one could see it. The girls would always roll their skirts. If you don't know what I mean, just like roll down the top of their skirt so that the skirts would be shorter. Because the skirts were so ugly at the full length. They would go down to your knees. At very minimum, they would go down to your knees, and that's so ugly looking. So I'd always get in trouble for rolling my skirt too much. It's like, it at least has to be above your knee. Like, come on. Another thing was socks. We could wear knee highs, and on certain days we had to wear knee highs. But on other days we could wear socks that were, I think it was like an inch above our ankles or something like that. They like would literally measure our socks, which I'll get to in a second. I would try so hard to get away with wearing ankle socks because I hated regular socks. Now, I don't understand why Catholic schools don't let kids wear ankle socks. I really don't. What is it about ankles? Like, what? Every day I would wear ankle socks and I would get in trouble. Either they would find my parents, I would be in the principal's office like every other day. Like it's, I don't know if it was really that much, but like a lot. Sometimes my parents would like get on me about it, like,
You need to be wearing the right socks.
and so I would wear the right ones, but then I would get to school and I would flip them and I would put them inside my shoe so that it looked like I was wearing ankle socks and it felt like I was wearing ankle socks, and then I would get in trouble and have to pull them back up. But it was an everyday battle. But yeah, it was just dumb things like that that you would never get in trouble for at a public school. But at a Catholic school, it's the end of the world. At my school, we had to wear Class A uniforms or whatever during all school masses. So like I said, we had to wear knee highs. We also had to wear our sweaters. And there were always those few kids that would forget when we had all school mass. Everybody's wearing a blue sweater. So if you're wearing a white polo, you're gonna stick out like a sore thumb. The not so nice priest is gonna call on you and point you out in front of everybody because you forgot that you had all school mass. Every single time they would be scrambling to find a sweater. So they'd be asking around like,
Do you have an extra sweater? Did you bring an extra sweater?
there would be some people that would bring extra sweaters just because they knew other people would forget. And as much as you hate uniforms when you go to a Catholic school, there were some benefits to it, I'm not gonna lie. As much as you want to be able to wear certain things that you're not allowed to, you would come home from school every day and like wear your uniform. Every now and again, it's like if you've worn it all day and you know you're gonna have to wake up and put on the exact same outfit, you may as well sleep in it at that point, right? There were really intense searches at Catholic school, specifically for uniforms. We'd have to stand in a line and they would go through and look at every single person. You know, are you wearing the correct clothing? Girls, they would measure your skirt length. They would measure your socks, which is ridiculous because the whole point of uniforms, right, is that everybody looks the same. There's no attention on clothes. You're able to focus on school, but then they literally spend time in class pointing out people's uniforms, drawing so much attention to it. Like they literally do the exact opposite of what they claim uniforms do. I get really heated about Catholic school. But they didn't just do searches for uniforms. They would do searches for everything. They would literally search through our stuff trying to find phones. Dress down days were a huge deal. I would have my parents make sure that, you know, everything's washed that I want to wear. You had to follow guidelines on dress down days. I remember one time I wore something that looked too like emo. I was in my phase and in middle school like everybody else was at the time.
Situations are irrelevant now.
I wore, you know, an emo looking outfit, and I wasn't allowed to go to church. They stopped me from going to church because my outfit was too, like, edgy. This is supposed to be a place of God. This is supposed to be accepting of everybody, and I can't even go to church because I'm wearing skinny jeans. Like, what? Catholic school is very small. Some are bigger than others, but at my school, our middle school was just like, we had 3 different classrooms. It was 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. There was 1 class for each. That's like throughout the entire school. You know, there's only 1 kindergarten class, 1 first grade, etc. Each teacher taught a few different subjects, so we would just go to 1 classroom. Go to these lockers that we really didn't need because we could literally just carry our books, and then go to another classroom like 5 seconds away. So obviously everybody knows everybody in the entire school, no matter what the grade is. You know, entire families. The teachers know you before you get to their class. We always had to invite everybody in the class to our birthday parties, or else we were not allowed to talk about our birthdays at all at school. Other kids could feel excluded because the class is so small, which I do understand in some aspects, but it's also like, that's a bit over the top, like everything else in Catholic school. Now, because the schools are so small, any sort of minority or anybody who's different in any way is a celebrity kind of in their own way. Of course, at a lot of small schools, the new kids are celebrities in themselves. Everyone's like, oh, it's the new kid. The whole entire year, they're the new kid. When I got to high school, there's a school of like 400. There were, I believe, 5 black people. Like literally you can count on your hand. A lot of them were mixed. I think there were like 2 fully black people or something. Everybody knew them and everyone knew them for being black. Not in a racist sort of way, it was just kind of like they were like mini celebrities in that sense. CCD kids were the spawn of Satan. CCD, for those of you who don't know, is just like an after-school religion class. So if you go to public school, you could go to CCD class and then have your religion class. But the thing is, the kids at public school are not very well behaved. I don't mean this in a negative way because, again, Catholic school is crazy. The only reason the kids are so well behaved is because they can't get away with anything without going to the principal's office. The kids at Catholic school are very well behaved and the public schoolers are not so much. And so they would come in and they would destroy our belongings. We would always have to clean up our desks before CCD kids came. They would tear up erasers. They would just break things for no reason. We would tell our teachers and they'd be like, yeah, I'll talk to the teacher who does CCD, and then nothing would ever happen. Like, it would keep happening. The thing is though, they would get blamed for everything. 99% of the time, if there was something randomly broken, like an eraser or something, it was the CCD kids, because it would always happen the morning after CCD. But sometimes there was just random things that it's like, we have no proof that it's the CCD kids, but like, we're just gonna blame it on them. So obviously at a Catholic school, I was very sheltered. You're very sheltered from the outside world. Being gay and all of that was not talked about at all. I didn't even know that being gay was like a thing until I was like in the 7th or 8th grade. Social media didn't exist until I was in like the 7th or 8th grade, so nowadays it's kind of unavoidable, like you know about it. But back in my day, social media barely existed. Stuff like that wasn't talked about in Catholic school at all, and so you just didn't know. I was so sheltered. For example, I went to camp. I really didn't have a lot of experience being around public schoolers besides like my cousins, and all the kids were saying like, oh, that sucks, or like freaking, a word to replace a bad word. And the camp counselors were allowing them to say it. I came back and I said like freaking in front of my mom, and she flipped out and she's like,
that's a bad word. Like, of course you would come back after hanging out with public schoolers saying all these bad words.
And I'm just like, all these kids were saying it. I didn't think it was a bad word. I don't know. It's just like, my parents were just appalled that I would say freaking. Like, that's how sheltered I was. So boys at school, we were not allowed to have any sort of PDA at all. You cannot even like, no. At mass, you would always pray to be by the boy that you liked, or like across from, and you could like look at each other in mass. Of course, if you were next to the person that you liked, you could hold their hand, because there's that part where you say the Our Father and you have to hold everybody's hands, and like you shake their hand if you were near them. So you always planned out who you're gonna be by. The teachers would literally do everything to, I'm filming. Hi. No, come here and love me. I'm talking about boys. Okay, so the teachers would do anything they could to separate you from the boy that you liked, and they always knew who you liked. Somehow or another, they always found out. I had a boyfriend toward the end of middle school. Like, we dated for like a really long time, but I was not allowed to sit by him. I was not allowed to interact with him, nothing. But yeah, the teachers knew everything, and the times that they didn't know something, it was like a big deal. I remember one time I started dating the guy that I ended up actually dating. One of the kids in class had kind of alluded to our relationship. They kind of had said something that like makes you assume that I'm dating him. They clearly didn't know this. The teacher was like, and she like called in the other teacher, and they're like whispering right in front of us and like staring at me. Like I said, everything's just blown out of proportion in Catholic schools. From then on, I could never interact with this guy at all. And so because they separated the guys and the girls so much, like they just kind of ignored that whole people are dating and all that sort of thing. So sex education did not exist. I know some people at Catholic schools say they didn't learn anything in terms of sex education. Now that's not true for us, but I'll get to that in a second. First off, I would like to say that they waited so long that it's useless at the time that they started telling us these things. In 6th grade, there was this kid in my class and he made like an offhand comment like,
I don't know why girls are always going to the bathroom.
me and my friend are like, ha ha ha, yeah, right? Because everyone kind of jokes like girls don't go to the bathroom. And he's like,
What are they even doing in there?
and we're like, what do you mean? What do you mean? What are they doing in there? And he's like,
Well, girls don't pee.
and we're like, yes, they do. It was like honestly hilarious, but also like sad at the same time. We were like, you need to go home and talk to your parents. We didn't talk about sex or sex ed or anything like that until 8th grade. There was one day, I'm pretty darn sure it was one day. It was like, we did one tiny unit on it one day in the 8th grade. And I vividly remember it was like really awkward because we had waited this long. We were doing a popcorn reading. Like how awkward is that? Why would you do popcorn reading? Besides that, that's literally the only time we ever talked about anything like that. So that is all for this week's video. I hope that you guys got a little bit more insight into the craziness that is Catholic school. If you have gone to a Catholic school, please share your stories below. Also, just so you guys know, this upcoming month is the ADHD awareness month, and so I'm going to be doing a whole bunch of ADHD type videos on my channel, so be ready for that. All right, I will see you next Thursday. Bye guys.